I don't know. Where is everyone? Please enter to win Brian and James's door prize. Mostly James's door prize. I'm not giving anything away. I don't know. It's wrapped. Welcome to NCraig. Tonight we are covering the one thing, which looks like this if you take the sleeve off, and looks like this otherwise. I find the sleeve crazy to flip through the book. So I'm going to read you the whole book tonight, which is going to be awesome. It's going to be about 1 a.m. before we get out of here. But let's start with introductions. Just introduce yourself, and if you've read the book or not, if you want to add any thoughts, you're more than welcome to. We'll start with you.
I'm Renee Bennigan. I am not a realtor. I don't know if anybody else is here, but just came to join a real estate investing group because I'm trying to get back into it.
Nice.
And have not made a deal yet, but have not read that book, but I evidently will need to.
Maybe you won't have to after tonight. I'm going to read it. They're long Cliff Notes. You could have bought shorter Cliff Notes online, for sure. Yeah, and there are not. James is our realtor. So I don't know if anyone else. Is anyone else in the room tonight licensed? I don't think so. Oh, I forgot. But you do your own stuff. Dan?
I'm Dan Silva. Invest in real estate on the site. I'm also my IT consultant. And I have not read the book.
Awesome. Anna?
Anna Silva. I'm with them. We have some properties, rental properties, and I have not read.
Awesome. Chris?
My name's Chris. This is my second time here. I don't have any properties besides the one I live in, so just getting started.
That's a good start, better than most.
Yeah.
Don't undercut that good start. Elijah?
My name's Elijah. Actually, I have read the book. It's really good. Enjoyed it. Followed it up with the narrative, The Investor.
Oh man, like my top 2 recommended books. Boom, boom. Awesome. We miss you while you're outside. If you want to introduce yourself, let us know if you've read the book.
Hi, my name is Gillard. And no, I actually just read like the first few pages a couple of days ago. But I've had this book for a few weeks now.
Awesome.
I'm actually excited to read it.
Perfect. We'll get through it. Beth?
I'm Beth Larch. We have a couple deals going on in different stages right now. The one thing is on my Amazon, like going to get it in the cart, so I haven't read it quite yet.
That's fine. Yeah, there was no prereq to actually have to read the book tonight. So, Lashana?
I'm Oshana. I like fixing flips, and I'm buying my first house this year. We do Nomad and possibly a rental next year too. And I don't like to read.
They have this thing called Audible.
Yes, I don't like that either.
I don't like to read or listen.
This is why I come to class.
Oh, perfect. We'll do more. We'll just ask her what her next book is, and then we'll teach class on that. She'll never have to read. The listening part, I don't know. Yeah. Hi.
My name is Rob Madsen. This is my second time here. Complete beginner, absolute zero knowledge. So I have not read the book.
Perfect. Welcome.
Brandon. I'm just getting started, just learning, and just finished the book this morning.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you start it this morning too?
Audible.
Oh.
Audible this morning. You finished it today?
I started Audible yesterday.
He got up at 12:01, went like, oh, class tonight. Yeah, I gotta just start listening. That's awesome. It'll be interesting to see. See, it doesn't take long. I know. Hello?
I'm Jessica, and I'm doing the Nomad model, and I have not read it.
Awesome. Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison. I'm mostly just here to learn for future endeavors, and I have not read the book.
Nice. You thought I was going to skip you again, huh?
A little bit.
Yep. It won't ever happen again. James.
Yes, I am James, and I have read one thing twice because one time was not enough.
That's weird.
Sure.
You read the one thing 2 times?
I did.
When are you going to read it a 3rd time?
Maybe next year.
Maybe next year. Maybe not after this.
Right when it first came out, and I read it again this year.
Nice. And Tammy's out there somewhere. And I'm Brian. I think all of you know me, so I've obviously read the book. It would be funny if I would have like, I haven't read the book, and then it was like someone's cliff notes with like copyright at the bottom. That would have been really good. I should have done that for the first slide. Tuesday webinars, which is usually James teaching. Somehow Brian has a large teaching load this month. I'm not sure how that happened, James. Tuesday, September 26th, so next Tuesday, James is teaching Analyzing Deals 301, Multifamily for Nomads. Quick synopsis of it.
It's going to be me with a spreadsheet going over how to analyze a deal for nomad stuff. Basically, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes, and then how to analyze it when you're moving into one of the units.
Nice. And then Asset Protection 101, overview for nomads. This is also the following Tuesday. This is me teaching with James making funny jokes as I teach. This is essentially asset protection. The presentation that you've seen here, it'll be very similar to that. So if you haven't seen the asset protection presentation, that'd be a good webinar to tune into. It will also have the kind of gear towards nomads, but it will cover kind of all of the general picture as well. And then next week here, we're teaching arguably the best class of the year, part 2. Not sure how that's even possible. Nope. Just part 2. We did hot seats. Hot seats 1, but so I don't know. Do you know the topics you're teaching?
I do actually spend all day working on
Would you like to disclose them?
So the topic for me is the return on investment just from debt pay down. I'm going to go to Freaky Town on that. And then what to do if you find yourself with $100,000, what you should invest in. And I have a lot of detail on that one too.
Nice. Are you going to tell us how to make $100,000 so we have $100,000 to invest?
What's that again?
Are you going to tell us how to make $100,000 first?
No.
Okay.
No. Not doing that.
Are you going to tell us what to do if we have 10K?
Nope.
Oh.
Only 100.
All right. They are supposed to be short topics. My topics are I don't even remember one of them now. It's using a HELOC to buy down, using a HELOC to pay off your home faster, which is one way that people are paying off their homes faster. They take a HELOC for the entire balance, and we'll cover that. The other one is essentially the differences between people with money and people without money. So call it rich or wealthy or poor or whatever. We're going to cover habits and kind of things that go along with that. And those will all be 15 to 30-minute kind of topics, something like that. And then somehow I'm teaching again, Get Your First Deal Done, which we argued on the phone, and it turns out it is my presentation. I was like, I don't have a presentation named this. It's got to be yours. He's like, no, you taught it like this day. And I went back and looked, like, yeah, it's named something different. So Getting Your First Deal Done is literally the class that James likes to say. Brian tries to teach every single NCREG class in one class. And it's not that long. It's just that every bullet point is literally an entire class for some of it. Last time I taught it, I had one bullet point on seller property disclosures, and the next week James taught a 2-hour class on that bullet point. So it's a high-level overview of what you need to do to get your first deal done. James has been running NCREG for a long time, like 72 years or something, and it finally got to 800 members. How long have you really been running it? 2003. So it hit 800 members, so he brought a little door prize to draw for people to.
Oh wait, I got you in there. Oh, you did. Yep. All right, so wait, tell what the door. You're not gonna.
Yeah, Tammy, your hand's gonna have to go in there because my hand is not.
This is the door prize for everyone who knows this. It's nothing gross.
Oh, I could get it in, but then I'm gonna have to like punch
It's
somebody
like the
to get it
monkey
out.
trap.
Here, hold
You
the
ever hear
glass.
about the monkey trap?
Maybe.
Got one? Who is
Yep.
it? Who is it?
Beth.
Beth gets look. Woo!
Yes. Now she doesn't have to buy it. It was on her Amazon list.
What it is.
Well, you just said it.
I did not say it.
She knows what it is. She's not dumb. Everyone everyone knew what it was. I looked at it when I walked in and knew what it was. All right. In the interest of time, we're gonna push through some of this. So, interesting proverb in the beginning of the book: if you chase 2 rabbits, you will catch neither. Right? or you will not catch either, depending on how you like to speak in Russian. So this is super true, right? When you're focused on lots of stuff, how much stuff do you actually get done? That's what we're going to talk about tonight, is the one thing. How many of you seen the movie City Slickers? Yeah. So how many of you are familiar with this scene where they're out riding horses and they've been kind of going back and forth the whole movie? They don't really get along. This is the one scene where they kind of connect, right? Curly says, you know what the secret of life is? Mitch says, no. What? This. He holds up one finger, right? And he goes, your finger? Because it is a pretty funny movie. He goes, one thing, just one thing. You stick to that and everything else don't mean shit. That's great, but what's the one thing? And that's, I think, why we're here tonight, right? Is to figure out what is that one thing for us. So Gary Keller, who's the author of this book, along with Jay Papasan, which sounds like I'm saying grandpa, for some really weird reason.
Is that what you called your grandpa?
No, I call my grandpa grandpa. But every time I say Papasan, I'm like, who is that?
Like Karate Kid.
Yeah, it's like somebody, yeah. I don't know who it is. But I totally don't know where I'm going to go with that anymore. So whatever. I can't see because of the glare. So his story, how many of you know who Gary Keller is? Keller Williams, ring a bell? Right? So he is one of the two people that started Keller Williams. He may be the one that started it. I don't really know the in-depth background. But this is kind of his story in the beginning of the book, right? He had a lot of success. He was doing things, had tons of success, and he hit a wall, like many of us do, right? It's like, hey, things are going really well, and then suddenly you're like, man, I just don't know what's going on. Things don't seem to be working out. So what do? You push harder. You try harder, right? Bring all your willpower to the table, and you're like, I'm going to make it better. And does it work, right? Probably not, right? James is like, yeah, it totally works. No, it doesn't. And so he did this, and things basically kind of got worse. And so what he realized was he had to go back and he had to connect his approach with the results he was getting. And that's what the one thing is about, right? Is if your results aren't the results that you want and you're not living the large, extraordinary life that you want, step back and look at your approach. And the one thing is, how can you really resolve your approach to have you live the life that you dream of living? And so that's what he did. He went out, and blacked out the screen. It's gone. I don't know where it is. There we go. So he went and found a coach, right? What do we do when we're struggling? We find a coach, a mentor, a friend. We say, hey, I need help. So he went out and found a coach. I don't even know who his coach was, but I bet he got paid a lot of money. And his coach basically said, hey, there's only one thing you need to do in your business. And he was like, come on, one thing? And the coach basically said, there's 14 positions in your company, and you need to focus on filling those 14 positions with key people that are going to help build your business and make it successful. How many of you have ever been in a position where you had to hire somebody, and it's like, it just seems like, oh, I don't want to work on the hiring, but as soon as you hire the right person, everything clicks into place. It's amazing. So what did he do? He took that to heart, stepped down as the CEO of his company, and went and focused on this, right? That's a pretty big jump, right? Your coach says, hey, why don't you just quit being CEO of your company and go focus on filling 14 positions? That's a tough one for a lot of CEOs to swallow. So kudos to him. So he obviously thought, man, it's hard to imagine that me just focusing on that's going to change so much. But within 3 years, they saw over 40% growth annually for almost a decade, which is pretty impressive. They went from being a kind of regional player to an international contender with their business. That's pretty big. And so as he filled his 14 positions, what is he going to do with those people? He's going to make them the best that he could, right? So what does he do? He has coaching calls. And he'd end his coaching calls basically as many of you to end your one-on-ones with your manager or whatever, saying, hey, what are the things you're going to do until we talk again that are going to, make you successful? And they'd list off some things. And so he wasn't getting the results he would expect, right? James would only get, 8 of the 10 things he told me done. So he changed it to, hey, what are the 3 things you're going to do? And then what are the 2 things you're going to do? And finally, it was just, okay, forget it. Just tell me the one thing you're going to get done. Because now it's like you either did it or you didn't do it, right? It's not like, oh, James comes back and says, hey, I got one of them done, and it seemed like it was the important one. No, what is the important one? And that is really at the heart of what the one thing is about, right? How do you focus your energy and get the most important thing done first? And so this is the question he asked, and this is the root question of the one thing. What's the one thing you can do this week such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary? So imagine this. If you could do one thing that made all the other things on your to-do list either easier or not necessary anymore, wouldn't you want to do that thing? I would. I definitely would want to find out what that thing is. So he started doing this. Of course, results went through the roof. And this is just his hindsight in thinking, right? He says, you know, huge success comes from narrowing your focus. And when his focus was all over the place, obviously, so was his results. So why do some achieve more than others? Anybody want to take a guess?
They have more hours in the day.
That is not it.
More focused.
They're more focused. What does that mean?
Well,
They read the one thing and applied the principle?
Yeah. Well, for me, what it doesn't mean is, you know, I think about what I need to do all day long every day, and I don't actually take the action, and then next day I'm like, oh, I got this on my list still.
Yep.
And then I'm exhausted because I've been thinking about it all day.
Yeah.
I have no energy to do it.
Yep. Yeah, we will definitely hit on that specific point, that constant, like, you're troubled by, you just can't get it out of your head. Like, I got to do this, and then I got to do this. Tammy's back there nodding like, oh. I was going to say, Tammy, I know, is so busy, and so she's got all of these things to do, and yet she's still doing the work of at least two people. One of them is James. That's why he wanted to wear her sweatshirt. So one of the reasons that people don't achieve as much as others is they go small, right? You see this in, I'm sure, some of your friends, maybe your parents, maybe your kids. They only go, you know, I can only ever do this, right? I can tell you stories about my parents in that aspect, and right? Why do they do this? Because it's like, hey, I can see it, I can definitely get there, but they could have gotten here, or even bigger than I can move my arms, right? So instead of that, you need to ignore all the things you could do and focus on the thing that you should do. Not everything matters equally, right? If they did, it's like firefighters would eat dinner instead of put out a fire, right? All things are not the same importance level. And Gary will tell you that extraordinary results are directly determined by how narrow you can make that focus, right? So it's not that we want to go small, but we want to take our focus to a small point so that we can start there and then continue. Going small always works. Oh, I'm going to read. I told you I was going to read from the book. Or James, do you want to read? You could be like an author. I could put it on the mic and be like, this is Gary Keller, and then the presentation will be awesome. Paragraph 3. So just going to read a couple paragraphs. The way to get the most out of your work and your life is to go as small as possible. Most people think just the opposite. They think big success is time-consuming and complicated. As a result, their calendars and to-do lists, and our brains, that's my injection, become overloaded and overwhelming. Success starts to feel out of reach, so they settle for less. How familiar does that feel, right? Oh, I want to do this big thing, and then slowly you're just like, ha, it's just beating me down, I'm not going to get there, and you do less. Unaware that big success comes when we do a few things well, they get lost trying to do too much and in the end accomplish too little. Over time, they lower their expectations, abandon their dreams, and allow their life to get small. This is the wrong thing to make small. You have only so much time and energy, so when you spread yourself out, you end up spread thin. You want your achievements to add up, but that actually takes subtraction, not addition. You need to be doing fewer things for more effect instead of doing more things with side effects. The problem with trying to do too much is that even if it works, adding more to your work and your life without cutting anything brings a lot of bad with it. Missed deadlines, disappointing results, high stress, long hours, lost sleep, poor diet, no exercise, and missed moments with friends and family. All in the name of going after something that is easier to get than you might imagine. Going small is a simple approach to extraordinary results, and it works. It works all the time, anywhere, and on anything. Why? because it has only one purpose, to ultimately get you to the point. I didn't figure I could put that in a slide. So really, what we're talking about, and I just want you to watch the, how many of you have ever seen a geometric domino progression? Other than James. So the domino effect is the fact that you could take a domino that is very small and it can knock over a domino that's 50% larger than it. And that one can knock over one that's 50% larger than it, right? And so this is just a silly video to show you that it actually works. And he starts with a microscopic domino. And works his way up very quickly to this giant, like, over a meter domino.
So what's interesting about that one is with the tip of his pen, he was able to knock over this huge domino at the end.
Yeah. So, and he goes on to explain the physics. You can all go look the physics up later if you're really interested. But the point is, we're aiming to figure out what that first domino is. That's our one thing. And we're going to start with that, and we're going to knock it over until we knock the next one over, until our dreams are that last domino, and we're knocking them down. It's not a linear thing, right? If it was linear, it would take you a really long time with tens of thousands of dominoes to get to your dream. It's not. So if you started, for a little bit of fun, if you started with a 2-inch domino, the 10th one would be taller than me. Just, right? And you just saw him knock 10 down. His first one was smaller. The 23rd is bigger than the Eiffel Tower. So imagine that, right? Imagine your one thing is just 2 inches and you start working on it. Pretty soon you're knocking down things that are huge, right? The 31st is taller than Mount Everest, and I think the 57th one is literally the distance between the Earth and the Moon, right? That's crazy. So if you focused on that one first domino until you knocked it over and took a step forward and then focused on the next one, where are you going to end up and how much faster are you going to get there than flicking one little domino at a time to get to that same result? Shoot for the moon. You have to prioritize everything, and you have to focus on that first one. So we're going to figure out how to line up our priorities and whack away at that first domino until you knock it down. And this is the other thing that most people, I think, don't comprehend, and it appears a lot of places in this book, right? Success isn't, hey, you know, Michael Jordan was all of a sudden an amazing basketball player, right? It didn't just happen. It wasn't simultaneous. He didn't get good at shooting and passing and dribbling all at once, right? He spent hours a day working on his dribbling. He spent hours a day working on his shooting, and that time added up, right? It's not simultaneous. It's a sequential thing. And so if you start thinking about success that way, you'll have a better perspective on what it takes to actually reach your dreams. Proof of the one thing is everywhere. So, one product, one service. Who can name a company that is known for one product or one service? GoPro. What are they known for? Yeah. Yeah, and it's even more specific, right? It's like sports awesome, extreme sports video cameras. What else? Kleenex. What are they known for? Right, we don't even have another word for it anymore, right? Yeah. Puffs are better, by the way, for some odd reason. I used to love Kleenex, but they went thin. They lost their advantage. Anybody else?
McDonald's started out that way.
What'd they start with?
Just like hamburgers and shakes and fries, and that's it.
Yeah, like just a simple fast food meal. So KFC, what'd they start with? One recipe, right? They're just fried chicken recipe. Coors, I didn't know this. One product, one brewery for 20 years, and they basically experienced 1,500% growth with just that. That's amazing, right? Especially because they're local. Intel, microprocessors, Starbucks, obvious. Google's known for search. Do they do other stuff? Yeah, but search is what allows them to do that, right? That's what pays the bills. Star Wars. Is there one thing movies, or is it merchandise? What do you think? Culture? Yes. But what causes the culture? I think that's a great answer, because when you ask, well, what caused the culture? I think it's an easy choice, right? Merchandise didn't cause the culture. The movies did. Without the movies, there's nothing. So it turns out Star Wars merchandise has made over twice as much as the movies have made. But the one thing that led to that was the movies. How about Apple? What's their one thing? The what? The Newton? That was not a one thing. That was a bad thing. No, so what was Apple's very first one thing?
Computer.
Yeah, so they were, I mean, right, Macs, right? I mean, even before that, Apple II, Apple IIe, Apple, wasn't there an Apple II? You had that 2 Plus? I'm sorry. Oh.
Black and green monitor.
Yeah? That was her first computer? You still married her? I figured it'd be like a Tandy TRS 80 or something.
80 Model
My
1.
dad was a physicist, right?
I know,
So,
I'm
everything
kidding.
was like- Nothing was ever simple.
Yeah, so they've gone from stuff even before Macs, but Macs to iMacs to iTunes to iPods to iPhones to whatever is their next thing, right? And what's crazy about Apple is you could do a case study on them because they are able to do one thing, and then they move to the next one thing, and that one thing creates a halo effect for all their products, right? That's pretty amazing. When Steve Jobs took over Apple again, they had like 350 products, and he shut down 340 of them because he understood the need to say no, right? That's crazy. Like, yeah, get 350 things, lots of them making money. He's like, yep, no, no, and no, right? Pretty awesome. Next slide. One person. How many of you can immediately think of one person in your life that has made a difference? That's like, you go, man, without that person, I wouldn't be where I am today. No one? No. Yeah. So, I mean, it could be a parent. It could be a teacher, right? I can look back and go, there was a professor in college who I still go back and see. She claims I'm her favorite student, but I'm not sure that's true. She's definitely my favorite professor, but she gave me an opportunity to be a computer lab monitor my freshman year in college. And that turned into a job with a professor that she worked closely with, which turned into a job also for her, which turned into a job for another professor, all writing software. And that software that I wrote was why Microsoft actually called me. That thing on my resume. So I can like literally go back and attribute my success and me even getting to Microsoft from her. And she knows it, I've told her. Super appreciative. So everybody has somebody like that. None of us are self-made, right? You go back and look at Sam Walton. Who's Sam Walton? Walmart, right? How much is that guy worth, right? His father was his. He gave him $20K to open his first retail store. Who knows what it was? Ben Franklin. Yeah. There was a Ben Franklin in my hometown that burnt down. It's like the only fire ever in Eldora. Albert Einstein was Max Talmud, right? Imagine this, right? The kid's 10 and he's like, hey, let me show you some texts on math and philosophy and science, and I'm going to have dinner with you every week for 6 years. That's amazing, right? Oprah Winfrey, she says her father saved her personally, but Jeffrey Jacobs said, you don't want to go be a talent, you want to start your own company. Hence Harpo Productions, right? Imagine if she just had gone and been a talent. It wouldn't have turned out the same way for her. One passion, one skill. You need one intense emotion or one learned ability that shines through. And this is really where we start talking about people like Pat Matthews, who literally painted a picture every single day. And that's how he got good and became one of the greatest impressionist painters in America, right? He didn't just happen to be a great painter. He wasn't born a great painter. He worked at it, and he did it. There was a contest for a year to see if songwriters could write a song every single day. Do you know how hard that is, to write a song every day? How many of you have ever written a song at all? Yeah, try writing one new song every single day for an entire year. What happens? You run out of ideas in a lot of cases, but you get really good, right? You learn to do things in a new way. Gilbert Tuabonier's, if I read the story out of the book, I would start crying, so I'm not going to do that. Basically, I was going to read it to you. He was an amazing runner. As a junior in high school, he won the 400-meter and 800-meter championship for his country as a junior in high school. And then a different tribe actually attacked his high school and killed basically all of the kids in his high school except him. He was alive buried for 9 hours under other burning bodies. And he finally managed to get out and run, because running was his thing. He was able to run to a local hospital miles and miles away and be safe. And so what do you think he does now? He's a runner in Austin, Texas. Everybody knows him, and he sponsors clean water initiatives by doing a huge run in Austin called Run for the Water, right? So running is his passion, right? He's just constantly doing it. And this is the key. I think this is what makes a lot of people that are successful, where they're like, I didn't really do anything special. I just kept working at it, right? You spend a disproportionate amount of time working at something, and you will find success at it. What happens? That time translates to skill. Skill improves. What happens? Results improve. What happens when results improve? We go, oh, that's awesome. My results improved. I'm happier, right? What happens when we're happier? We're like, I want to put more time into doing that thing that just made me happy. And it becomes this virtuous cycle, right? More proof. One of my favorite ones. I worked at Microsoft for a long time. Bill Gates is a pretty awesome person. But when you go back and look at he had a lot of things that he was in the right period of time, but there were a lot of one things that add up to really make his life, right? His one passion was computers, which is amazing because his school, like not high school, but like I think middle school or even elementary, had a computer. It was like the only computer in the state, some craziness like that. And so that led him to one skill, which was programming, which led him to Paul Allen, who helped him found Microsoft, also gave him his first job before that happened. And together they sent one letter to Ed Roberts and said, hey, we actually think we can write code for the Altair 8800. And he gave him a shot. How many shots did they need? One, right? And then you go to Microsoft and you take the step up, right? What was the thing that Microsoft started as? Developing a basic interpreter and selling it for the Altair 8800. No? You don't think so? Yeah. We can argue about this later. The rest is really history, right? But then, I don't know how many of you know, right? Everybody knows Bill Gates and Microsoft, but the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is pretty amazing, right? They didn't just say, hey, we're going to start a charity because we have billions of dollars, and Warren Buffett has basically pledged all of his money to that foundation. They started with the belief, one belief, every life has equal value, which is a pretty outstanding belief to start from, but they didn't just say, hey, we're going to start there. They were like, what can we do that's amazing, right? We don't want to go fix like one thing in Nebraska. We want to fix something that's going to impact millions. So they wanted to tackle really tough problems like health and education. And as I'm sure all of you guys, probably many of you know, they're tackling that in poor countries by stamping out infectious diseases, right? Things that aren't in the US and haven't been for a long time, but are prevalent in other countries, right? And it's crazy. How are they doing it? By using one thing, right? Vaccines. However you feel about vaccines, not important for the discussion tonight. What's important is they chose one thing and they had good reasons for choosing it, right? It's cheap, it's very easy to transport, and it saves lives. All this seems super amazing, but how are we feeling today? James feels amazing, which we knew. But like, how do we really feel, right? How many of you are doing something right now where you're just like, man, I don't know what to do next. There's just too many opportunities. Yeah, it's crazy. Anna's laughing up here. Can I disclose a little bit? So I run an e-commerce business. Anna runs an e-commerce business. And she's so excited she can hardly contain it. So she's bursting because there's so much she could possibly do. And I feel the pain, right? I sell stuff on Amazon, and there are literally, if I had 1 million hours, I could fill them all because there's so much opportunity today. If you don't feel that way, maybe you're doing the wrong thing. But there is just too much opportunity, right? Especially in our day and age, right? You look at your phone and you go, oh, you do an Amazon business? Oh, I could do that too, right? And here's 100 videos I'm gonna go watch. Now I'm doing it too. And that's happened, right? There's multiple people in this room who are now selling on Amazon, probably because they heard of it here, which is amazing. So it's staggering to think about how many opportunities you could go pursue in any given day. How are you possibly going to choose? This is the problem, right? That nagging little sense that, gosh, I'm attempting to do too much. There's got to be an easier way. I've got to be able to get more from less, right? How do we do that? How do we begin? And then how do you not look back, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to go do this. And then you're like, oh, that thing over there looks way better. Hi. Oh, look, a squirrel, right? I mean, it's just like shiny object disorder. So how do you do it? You have to live the one thing, and that's why we're here. Before we can talk about the one thing in depth and how it's going to apply, we really need to focus on what the lies and the kind of misinformation are that most people believe that we can overcome. So read the book. This intro on this slide is not nearly as good as what he does in the book. But he gives examples like, have you heard, if you put a frog in boiling water, it'll jump out. But if you just put a frog in water and slowly turn the heat up, it'll cook. Like, is that true? No, it's not true. Would it be true for you? like the frog is not like, oh, it's warm. Oh, now it's too hot. I'm just going to stay here. Like, it's not likely to happen, right? He uses another example when, and I don't know this example very well because I don't like history, but when Cortez came he basically burned the ships that they arrived on to motivate his men. Everyone takes that for fact. It's not true. There's all these things that we hear again and again, and they're not necessarily like that, but we're believing them based on really nothing. So how do we get around that? The problem is the one thing becomes difficult to buy into because we've got all this other misguided crap stuck in our heads that isn't necessarily true. Almost all the real solutions in life are usually in plain sight, right? It's like, don't take the most complicated route. It's just, hey, I just need to go do the work. But currently, it's obstructed by all that crap that we've been believing, right? And those things start to sound like, I just have too much that needs to be done, right? I don't have enough time. I'll get done by doing all the things at once, right? I need to be more disciplined. Yes, James, you need to be more disciplined. I should be able to do whatever I want, right? These are things that people say to themselves a lot, right? You've probably said one of these to yourself in the last month, right? I think we all have. I need more balance in my life. Do you need more balance? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't dream so big. That to me is the life sucker, right? It's like, I hate it when people settle. So, repeat those often enough in your head, what happens? Prevents us from living our one thing. So, lie number one, everything matters equally, right? Equality is crap. It's just totally a lie, right? If you understand that not everything has the same importance, you will immediately be able to bypass this lie, which will be awesome. And we'll give you some tips on the next slide for how to combat each one of these lies. How many of you have a to-do list? And it's just like, you write all the stuff down. Is it prioritized? Or is it just a to-do list? Yeah, there you go. It's not, or it is. Yeah, I figured yours was. But most of ours aren't, right? It's like, I need to do this. What's the first thing you wrote down on your list? Attend NCREG?
That's the next thing on my list.
Yeah. So,
First thing that came on my head, I guess.
yes, that's exactly right. The first thing that you think of. Do you think that's the most important thing? Not most of the time. On occasion, it might be, right? Like, you're in the middle of a road and don't get run over is the first thing. That's probably your one thing for that exact moment. But otherwise, it's probably not. A lot of people today, we're busy, right? But that activity doesn't translate to productivity, right? We're busy doing all those things on our to-do list, but it's not important stuff. It's not the stuff we need to be focused on. It doesn't translate. We're just busy, but we're not getting any closer to success. And success isn't a game that's won by who does the most, right? Let that sink in. It's not a game that is won by who does the most. You don't need to buy more houses than James has, right? James doesn't need to buy more houses than Brian has. Whatever that looks like. You just don't have to win in that way. Yes. Right? And I just talked about to-do lists, right? And you nailed it, right? It's the first thing that comes out of your head. That doesn't have any intent or intention of being successful. That's just, I got a lot of stuff to do. What am I going to do next? Right? It's really a survival list, right? So what we need to do is take that survival list of all the crap we could do and turn it into a success list where it's all the things that we should do. How many of you are familiar with Pareto's rule or the 80-20 principle? So this principle is basically you get 80% of your results from doing 20% of your work. James, is this true with clients?
Yes.
So 80% of James's income, or whatever you want to call it, results are from probably 20% of his clients, right? Or maybe it's even a smaller percentage, right? This could be 95 and 5. It could be 70 and 3. It doesn't matter. Most of your results come from doing a very small amount of the work. So if you stop and think about that, all this stuff is bogus, right? There are lots of people who are like, man, they run a business. I wish our local insurance guy was here. But I'm sure you can even comment on this because you have kind of the same clientele base, right? Getting rid of that one customer who takes up 90% of your time, who's a pain, makes your business much better, right? Even if you lose some income, you may lose that much result, but you're gaining not having to do that much effort. Yeah?
I was gonna say, but in order to get the 20% of effort, don't you have to do the 80% as well? Because
No.
I guess that's kind of thinking like, in order for that 20% to exist, you need the other 80%. Because if you take away, if that's the
Right.
data,
So
20,
this 80% is generating 20% of results, right? So now imagine, I'm going to redraw this. We'll put effort, results. So 20% here, and we get 80% here. Now imagine if instead of doing this, we did more of this.
would that also be the same thing with
Now,
20?
so now I've got 20 here, and instead of spending only 20% of my effort, I spend 40% of my effort there. What's going to happen? I'm going to get another 80%, right? So it becomes that focus thing, right? Like, yes, you still have to do some of this other stuff, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But if you focus on the stuff that's getting you the most results, you realize you don't need to do everything else, right? Which is why the one thing is geared towards what's the one thing you can do, right, that will make the other stuff easier or unnecessary, right? Can you do more of this to make this not relevant?
Do you have slides later on about applying this to real estate investing? Can we do that?
No, not unless you want to be here till midnight.
No. I was just kind of curious what you thought the 20% was for real estate investing.
That's a good question. Ask it again at the end. So we covered that. Yes. So if you take this to the extreme, which is what the one thing is going to have you do, right? Here's your list of 25 things you could do. Take 20% of that, get 5, right? Take 20% of that and find the one thing, right? So not only are we going to figure this out, we're going to take it to the extreme and say, what's the one thing that I'm doing that's maybe getting me 60%, right? And then you're going to work from there. So how do you combat this lie of everything matters equally? Go small. This isn't dream small. This is focus small, right? Don't focus on being busy. And I've been there, right? I can go home and be busy all day, and at the end of the day go, I didn't do anything, right? Like I did a bunch of crap, but didn't make any progress on my actual bigger goals. Allow what matters to drive your day. Don't let your day drive you. Go extreme, like James when he had Tammy's sweatshirt on. Right? Keep whittling that list down until you've got one thing. Say no. If you can say no, right? I think in the book it says every time you say yes, you need to defend that one yes with 1,000 no's. What does that mean? That means if James says, hey, do you want to do this fix and flip with me and I say yes, I'm now going to have to say no to a bunch of other stuff because I just committed to this. You've got to defend. So say no, do your most important work first, right? Don't do it last, and we'll talk about that. Don't get trapped in the checkoff game. How many of you have ever written something down on a to-do list that you've already done so you can cross it off? Yeah, how stupid is this, right? Like, I want to feel successful. I wrote this, like, vacuum, right? I just finished that. Yeah, vacuum, crossed off. Yeah, I'm feeling good. How dumb is that, right? I do it all the time, right? We're not here to get success by checking crap off a list, right? We have to be focused. And if we believe things, right, it comes back to believing that everything is not equal. If we believe that things don't matter equally, we have to follow that up with actions. And that's what the one thing and the question will bring us to. Lie number 2, multitasking. How many of you guys are great at multitasking? One person in the room. Come on. How many of you, like, how many of your businesses that you work for are like, we love multitaskers. They're amazing. Can you multitask? Right? Is this a valuable asset? No, it is not a valuable asset. Lie number 2, this is a hit. It's not a truth, it's a lie, right? So a lot of research has been done on multitasking, and I worked for probably one of the king companies of multitasking because everyone at Microsoft wanted to be a multitasker, right? I was there too. I did it, right? But they show multitaskers get outperformed on almost every measure by people that just focus on one task, right? You can't multitask. You do not have 2 processors in your head. We all accept it as super effective. So you're like, bro, that's crap, Brian. I can totally watch TV while I'm folding laundry. Totally, yes, you can. No doubt. However, as that task gets more complex, you're going to pay a price. Can you walk and chew gum? Yes. Can you text and drive? Results on the road and the people dying are proving that you cannot, right? So don't text and drive on the way home, right? Or if you were about to, somebody calls you and you have to instruct somebody on how to land a Boeing airplane, are you going to keep walking? I guarantee you can just be like, okay, this is what you do next, right? Because you're thinking it through, and it's a complex task. Try teaching somebody to land a plane that doesn't know how to fly. It's not going to be fun, right? This is the problem. The time that it takes to get back on task increases from like 25% to over 100% as those tasks get more complex. How many of you guys are in the IT field or have ever written code, right? How many of you have ever been like in the middle of like really writing some complex software and then someone interrupts you for 15 minutes with something that's super urgent and then you turn back around and you just are like, oh my God, like now I have to spend another half an hour just to get back to where I was for a 15-minute interruption, right? That sucks. That's what's happening when we get interrupted, right? Another example, try crossing a rope bridge across a gorge. I'm scared of heights. I would probably be frozen. But most people are going to stop talking and put one foot in front of the other and be super focused, right? Talking even goes out the window at that point. Think about that. Your brain can't multitask. Here's how it hurts us, right? As we divide up our brain, right, we can't get topic switch, topic switch, topic switch. All those switches take time, right? 28% of your average workday is probably lost because we're reorienting to new tasks. That's crazy. You're wasting 28% of your time by multitasking. Stop multitasking, get focused, right? And one of the downsides is, and this didn't actually hit me until I put this on the slide, people develop a distorted sense of how long stuff will take. Because they're like, oh yeah, I did that before. It took me like 5 weeks. Yeah, with like how many interruptions? 100? 1,000? And so when I used to work at Microsoft, I had the ability to get things done faster than others. And when I wrote this on the slide tonight, I wonder if I was just more focused and they were doing it at the same speed, just being super interrupted, right? Because that's what's happening. We're just being interrupted. You're going to make more mistakes, and you're going to experience a lot more stress, right? And a lot less happiness, right? Task, switch, task. Do you feel any satisfaction from switching tasks? I don't think so. All right, how do we combat this, right? Here's the problem. Here's your interrupted workflow. Same exact amount of time for the primary work. Switch, reorient, distraction. Distraction ends, switch, reorient back, right? This looks like it's about twice as long. That stinks. We could have been focused, shut our door, locked it, put a sign on it that says, go away, do not enter, and we would have gotten done faster. Don't feel bad, though. Everybody's going to get distracted. It's a natural thing. Don't get down on yourself. But remember that when you get distracted, it leads to poor choices. It leads to more mistakes. It slows things down, and it's going to stress you out. Figure out what matters most, and then what? Focus, right? Give it your undivided attention. Lie number 3, we're to discipline, finally. How many of you guys think of yourselves as disciplined? I know no one's going to raise their hand because it has the word lie in front of it, but like James thinks he's disciplined. That's fair. I think I'm semi-disciplined. I would call myself that. But what's wrong with this, right? The thing is, you see the guy who's, walking out of the gym, who looks super in shape, who pulls his healthy cashews out of his bag and walks to his car that's a Lamborghini and gets in it and drives away, and you go, man, that guy's disciplined, right? You see him up at 5 in the morning walking his dog or running. Like, you think, that guy's disciplined, and therefore he's successful. You don't think so, Lashana? You've been like...
I think he is tired. 5 a.m. He's just now leaving the gym in his Lambo. He's exhausted.
He might not have gone to work if he's driving a Lambo.
Maybe he's sleeping.
Yeah, but we confuse the fact that that person, we see that person, we think, oh, they're super disciplined, and therefore they're successful. That's probably not the case. What we need is we need to direct and manage our focus better. It's not a marathon of disciplined action, right? Being successful comes from building habits and then letting those habits kick in, and you will appear to be very disciplined at the point where those kick in. If you get up and run 5 miles every morning, I guarantee your neighbor's like, man, that guy is so disciplined. I wish I could even run a mile. Like, that's crazy, right? But that's just a habit that you've done again and again and again, and it's just a habit. You're not even hardly spending energy on it. So how can we build the habits that are going to kick in to basically make us disciplined, right? And that habit, it's really just a sprint. Can you go long enough? Can you be disciplined long enough to build a habit? James says yes, he can. How long does it take to develop a new habit? Anyone but James. And anyone else that's not read the book.
I haven't read the book. You told it.
Oh, I told you. When did I tell you?
The last book.
Oh, man. Yeah, so most people think 21 days, right? That's the common...
Last time I said 21, you said no, it's 66.
Yeah, so most people say, oh, it's 21, and apparently in the last class she said it was 21, and I said, no, it's 66. So they did some research, and it shows it takes 66, but in some cases even longer, right? It was as long as like 254 days for one of the habits, right? And this was just to build like an exercise habit, right? When you think about changing your diet or starting a new exercise program, like where do you usually fail? Day 2, right. You haven't made it to 66. You've got to really bore down and be disciplined for those 66 days and just force your way through it at some point in order to build the habit that will then pull you the rest of the way. The other really cool thing is the researchers found that by acquiring a new habit, that habit may have a halo effect and help it and make it easier to acquire other new habits, right? Imagine that. If you do one thing, and then you do something similar, and then you do something similar, it gets easier over time. That sounds pretty obvious to me. And this is really why that guy who's driving his Lambo makes it seem easier, right? It's just like, oh man, I could totally be that guy, right? I could be all buff and driving a Lambo, but I don't know how he does it. He built habits. That's how he did it. Do the most important things regularly, and everything else will get easier, right? This is the point of the one thing. It's even in the question. So how do we combat being over-disciplined and trying to force discipline in our lives, right? Don't be a disciplined person. That sounds crazy, right? Instead, focus your discipline, right? Everything tonight is about bringing stuff down to what's that smallest piece that you can do that's going to have the biggest impact. Focus your discipline on selected actions. Hey, I want to develop a new habit. I'm going to start eating better. That's the only habit I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to try and do 10 things at once. James, how does that work out?
It's something I'm focusing on right now. Doing just the diet, not
No.
exercise.
If you try to focus on 10 things, how does that usually turn out?
It doesn't work out very well at all.
Yeah.
Do one at a time.
Yeah. So do one at a time. Yeah, it wasn't about the diet.
It was actually an echo of the conversation you guys had earlier today, I think.
I think a lot of the classes end up being echoes of conversations we have in the days.
We should just record them, come and hit play, and be like, this is class. I just said this, right? And it comes back. We talked about this earlier, right? Michael Jordan didn't show up as a great basketball player one day, and he wasn't born that way. He worked his butt off for it sequentially, right? You've got to knock down your first domino in order to get to that last big one. Don't try to multitask this. Bad idea, right? Give each habit enough time. 66 days may be enough for you. It may not. It may take 120. See how it goes, right? Until it becomes just normal and natural and easy, don't go to your next habit. So if you are what you repeatedly do, right? We're trying to build habits. We're trying to repeat that habit over and over again, right? Achievement isn't an action you take, but it's a habit you're going to forge into your life, right? So you're going to make achievement a habit as well, right? By doing the one thing. Build the right habits and you will find extraordinary results. How many of you have amazing willpower? Nobody? Come on. Don't be so humble. Put all your hands in the air. James is like, I don't. Yeah, I think everyone has amazing willpower. But the problem is it doesn't last, right? You can't will yourself sometimes through the dinner on day 2 of the diet because you're tired as heck from working all day. You've exhausted all your willpower already, right? That's crazy. So what do we know? When we tie our success to willpower, I'm just going to, I can do it. It doesn't work. It just doesn't add up. You just can't will your way to get through it. Every time you use some of that willpower, you have to recharge it. It's not like a never-ending Energizer Bunny battery. It doesn't just keep going. It's gonna need a recharge. You're gonna have to take a break. But we don't act that way. We say, oh, yep, I'm just gonna keep boring away at this problem, and eventually your willpower is gone. How many of you know the marshmallow test with kids? If you read the book, you definitely know it. If you listen to the book, you definitely know it, right? So they gave a bunch of kids in elementary school a marshmallow. I have to go out of the room. If you can wait 15 minutes before you eat that, I will give you another one. How many kids ate the marshmallow? A lot, right? But some were able to hold out. And what did he almost accidentally learn? The guy who ran this test, the kids were from the same school that his kids went to. And he just randomly started saying, how are those kids doing? And their answers were like, for the people who didn't eat the marshmallow. And the answers were like, they're doing really well. They're getting all A's. And he was like, really? And so he went back and started just compiling data on this. It turns out that those people who were able to delay that gratification generally fare better over time, right? So if you cannot have that instant gratification of, I need a candy bar right now, but instead, I'm just going to hold out and eat cashews, maybe that says something. Fast twitch muscles, right? These are what sprinters use to run 100 meters, but they couldn't run at that same speed for a mile, right? They just impossible. If they could, it would be an amazing mile time. But you have to give that muscle rest, right? The sprinter can't just sprint 100 and go back to the starting line and sprint 100 at the same speed. You have to give that muscle rest. Willpower is the same way. We've got no endurance. You need to feed your willpower. What do we feed it with? Lots of Cub Scout popcorn. No. Terrible night to sell popcorn. Foods that elevate your blood sugar slowly and evenly, right? And I'm not going to go into what those are for you, but protein and some complex carbs might not be a bad choice. How many of you know the parole board example, other than people who have read the book, right? So if you're ever in prison and you are needing to get paroled, you should make sure that your attorney schedules your parole hearing when? First thing in the morning or immediately after one of the parole board reviewers breaks. This is insane, right? This has nothing to do with who's sitting in front of them for the most part, right? Some of it does. That's why this isn't 100%. But first thing in the morning, 65% likely to get paroled. Wait a few hours until they're hungry, it's close to 0. They eat some food, whoa, we're back to 60%, right? It's crazy. So it's not just, luck of the draw of your time of your hearing might really suck for you year after year after year in prison. Just don't go to prison, you won't have this problem. But and look how, this one kind of comes down and goes up, right? So there's obviously variation, right? If this is, Dahmer, they're not letting him out, right? No matter what. But, look at this end of the day. They eat their afternoon snack and then it's just a straight line to the bottom where by the end of the day, they're just like, no, next, no, next, no, next. Can we go home? Awesome, I'm done. How do we combat this willpower always being on call? Don't spread it too thin, right? Use it sparingly. Monitor your fuel gauge. You've got to feed it. You've got to feed it healthy stuff. Eat right and regularly. Do your most important work when? Early. We just saw why. The parole board can only make really great decisions early in the day. When should you work on your one thing? Early. Early in the day. Your willpower is going to be at the highest after you've, what? Gotten up, you've slept all night, good sleep, ate some breakfast. Hopefully that's when your willpower is highest. What are you going to have to use your willpower for? To avoid all the distractions that we've talked about so that you can focus on your one thing. Lie number 5, a balanced life. And man, if this one doesn't hit home, work-life balance, at every company that I have ever known anyone that's worked at, especially in the technology realm, this is a serious issue, right? Because people are working until they're done with their work. It's not I came to work at 9 and I went home at 5. It's I've got 7 projects and they all need to get done. How do I have work-life balance, right? So how do we live a balanced life, right? I think the problem is this is a misleading concept. You can't live just perfectly in the middle of balance harmoniously all the time. That's what it looks like that guy who's built all his habits is doing, right? He's got time to run in the morning. He's got time to eat lunch. I don't even have time for that. He's got time to drive his Lambo to the gym and work out while we're here in class. Purpose, meaning, and significance. This is what makes a successful life, right? The desire for balance certainly makes sense. We want to be balanced, but there's not a way to make it happen. So this is what life would look like if your work and life balance were always super balanced, right? It's just right in the middle. But what do we know? In order to be super successful and focus on our one thing, we need to spend a disproportionate amount of time on it. Are we doing that? No. So everything is going to get shortchanged, right? All your work, you're never going to be able to focus for very long. The magic happens when we actually spend a disproportionate amount of time on something. What happens if we ignore our family, though, for a long period of time? You come back, they may not be there, right? It's you can't do that. And so we don't know how to manage life. If we're just all work or all life, we don't know how to manage that. We work too long, personal life suffers, and vice versa, right? We've got to have focused attention and time. So when you spend time on work, it means time away from something else. You spend time on personal life, it means time away from something else. You are making those trade-offs. That's why focusing on the thing that matters the most to you is important. So balance is impossible. Stop trying, right? But what can we do? And one point before I get to what we can do, right? Time doesn't wait for anyone, right? There's a lot of people who are like, yeah, I'm going to work really hard for 20 years or 30 years, and then I'm going to go retire and travel. You might be dead. Don't wait, right? You can't necessarily make that bet that you may not be able to cover in the future. So how do we combat this? Counterbalance. This is what counterbalance looks like, right? Notice, life doesn't get too far out of whack. Because if I just ignore my kids for 3 months, they're not going to like that very much, right? It's going to present some pretty big issues. But work, we're focusing on one thing. And we're getting to the extreme, and we're getting out of balance with respect to work so that we can focus on it and spend a disproportionate amount of time. The quote would be, never go so far that you can't find your way back, right? There are definitely people who just go to the extreme at work, lose their family, lose their life, and continue to just dig into the work hole, right? That happens. Or stay so long that when you come back, there's nothing there, right? Be ashamed to do all that work and then be successful and come back and have no one to share it with. Not to mention that that's awfully unhealthy, working all the time. Think about balance in 2 areas, work life and personal life, and then the balance within each, right? So you've got balance with work, you spend a disproportionate amount of time on your one thing, the most important project, and then you've got all that other little stuff that you've got to come back and still probably do. But then you spend a disproportionate amount of time on that important project again, right? Focus time. There's what matters the most, and then there's everything else. Got to get to that prioritization. To achieve an extraordinary result, you must choose what matters most and give it all the time it demands, not just the time you can afford to give it. And this is what going to the extreme means, right? You've got to put in the extra time and say, you know what, that other stuff, I'm just gonna ignore it because this is the most important thing, and this is going to help me knock down my first domino. For personal life, awareness is the key ingredient, right? Be aware of your own personal life. Know when you're out of balance. If you go home and your wife or your husband or your spouse is like, I haven't seen you in 2 months, you're probably out of balance, right? Fix that. Because all of those things have needs, right? Not just family and friends, but spiritual, your physical body, all of that stuff has needs. You can't really sacrifice any of those and still end up with a life, right? And I've already said this, but for work, you're going out of balance long times. For personal life, short times. Come back to the family and friends that love you. Lie number 6, the final lie, big is bad. Anybody want to take a guess at what this is? Why is big bad? Because it's greedy. It's a good guess. What? What? It's a wolf. I should have put a wolf up there. I got good pictures for next time. So if you fear big success, you're either going to avoid it or sabotage yourself on the way to big success, right? People think, oh man, your dream is too big, right? There's I don't even know what class it is, but it's where we go around and we say, oh, how much cash flow do you want per month or per year? And some of the people are like, I don't know, 2,000. And some people are like 5,000. And some people are like 10,000. And some people are like 25,000. And always there's one person who's like, I want 20 million a year, right? And everyone is like, what? How are you ever, like the first thought is you're insane. There's no way you're ever going to get there. But if we think that way and we fear that, right? Because that person may well be sitting there, I've got a plan. I know what my one thing is. I've started knocking down my dominoes. And 5 years from now, they're going to come back and laugh at all of us. Be like, yeah, I'm at 40 million a year. Where are you guys? Right? So don't fear big success. Big achievement. What does it take to get there? A lot of work, right? Hard, complicated, time-consuming, which is why we spend a lot of time on it, work. And the problem is people see it as, it's going to be really hard to get there, and if I could imagine myself getting there, it's going to be really complicated to keep up with, right? Overwhelming, intimidating, difficult. These are things that describe people's fear of being largely successful. This is another great one, right? We think, oh, if I become a CEO of a Fortune 500 company and I build it from the ground up, it's going to be super stressful, right? It's going to crush the rest of my life. It's an irrational feel, and what do we do because of it? we go, instead of doing that, I'm just going to have a 2-person company and get by on $300 a month, right? We lower our standards. It's not a good thing. None of us knows our limits. Let me see what my next line is. Oh, yeah. So if I ask you all right now, I want you to think of this in your head. I want you to pick a limit for yourself in life. Like, what's the highest thing you can achieve? Got it? Got it in your head? Somebody tell me what theirs is. 61.
6 feet 1.
Oh, 6 foot 1 inch. Thank you for making this a joke. Yes. Someone who's not James. What's your limit? Yeah.
Change the world.
Change the world. Notice he didn't say, I want to make $100,000 a year. Because that would limit himself, right? If we have to pick a limit for ourselves, what do we pick? The biggest freaking thing we can think of. Yet when we set our goals, what do we pick? The thing we know is achievable. That's a problem. You have to think big. You just can't avoid thinking big if you want extraordinary results. And in my opinion, you should read this book every year. I read it again to do this class, but the focus on extraordinary results is really compelling to me. Not just settling and not just saying, oh, I'm here, it's okay, but continuing to drive. And the book is very motivational. Success requires action, action requires thought, and the only actions that become springboards to succeeding are the ones that we start by thinking big. You're never going to become a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or you're never going to own 100 rental properties, or have 20 million a year in passive income, or 10K a year, whatever you want, right? Whatever your big, huge dream is, if you didn't start with that, the steps you're taking now are never going to get you there, right? Day by day, the things you're doing are not going to springboard you to become that person. You have to start with the big thought, which is why when we talk about what are your goals in real estate, I'm always like, what's your big goal? What is it you want, right? How many of you know Grant Cardone? 10X rule, right? This gets at that. If you're going to say, hey, I want $5,000 a month in passive income, right? Do we meet all of our goals? Everyone does in this room but me. I don't meet all my goals, right? But if I set my goal at 5K in passive income and I do a really bang up job and I get 80% of the way there and I'm at 4K, am I happy? Anna says yes. I say no, I'm pissed off. I missed, right? And now I may not have enough to live on. But if you 10x this goal and you said, hey, I want 50K a month, and you only got halfway there, are you happy? No. I'm pissed off. Yes. Some people are still pissed off. Yes. But now you've changed the way that you think, right? This is a whole other book review. But the 10x rule is just basically saying the things you're going to do to get to 5K a month are not the same things you're going to do to get to 50K a month. If you 10x your goal, or even 2, 3, 5x it, right, you're going to think differently. You're going to think bigger about what it is you need to do. And we're going to do this exercise, I think, on this next slide, which will be fun. How do we combat this? Realize that realize you get bigger, right? Not just your goals, but you grow, right? We talk a lot about pushing outside of our comfort zone, right? If this is your comfort zone, and this is your, like, I can kind of see it zone, and you do something that's here, what happens? Your comfort zone expands. What happens to this circle? Now you can see a little further, right? You continue to grow every time you push yourself. So think big. Keep going. Be open to the possibility that your life and what you can accomplish can be great. I think this is a good starting point for everyone. If you don't think your life can be great, go back and reset that thought. Like, your life can be great. You're sitting in a room full of people who want their lives to be great. If you don't know how to make yours great, the one thing can help you figure that out. Don't fear the big, fear mediocrity and waste. So I run a mastermind group, and one of the pieces of feedback, we just did a round of feedback, and one of the pieces of feedback that came up was that There are people who just, like, we just don't tolerate mediocrity, right? It's just like, it bothers us. And so I would, I don't know, encourage you to, like, stand up against mediocrity, right? Stand up against the stuff that's just middle of the road. Like, if it's important, do it well. Think big, right? What happens when we think small? Here's 5K, we got to 4K. Here's 50K, we got to 25. Amazing, right? Think big, big outcomes, need big actions. Don't ask, what do I do next? Ask bigger questions. How can I make this so that I can get to 50K? What do I need to do to make sure I achieve 50K in 5 years? Don't choose from available options. With my kids, this drives me crazy. It's like they only see the options that they are accustomed to, right? And they're learning. But this is also ingrained in a lot of adults, right? Not James, because when he goes to a restaurant, he does not order from the menu. He orders part of one dish with part of another dish with part of another dish. If you've never eaten with him, definitely eat with him. Just not at Qdoba. But, yeah, they know what his order is. 3 parts burrito, 1 part enchilada, 2 parts taco. 1 part cheese. So don't choose from what your available options are, right? Make your own options. I could give you examples with my kids, but it's like, well, I did this because that was like the only option. I'm like, well, you could have done X, Y, Z, A, B, C. And they're like, And I'm like, I got to get you to think that way all the time, right? Imagine the outcomes that nobody else is imagining. How do you think new people come up with new stuff? Otherwise, this world would be really boring, right? We'd all still be using like iPhone 1. And that thing was, I mean, it was good, but it was a brick, right? Act bold. Ask the big question, and then imagine your life living in that answer. What do you want your big goal to be? Live with that answer. Go study other people who are already doing part of what you want to do. Why do we study them? Because we can learn tons from them, right? This is why we're reviewing this book, right? If we all had to just figure out, we came to class tonight and we all decided, we're going to figure out how to make our life even better. How far would we get in a couple hours? Not far. How far will we get tonight? Hopefully a lot further. Don't fear failure. How many of you like to fail? James, put your hand down. You do not like to fail.
I actually do like to fail because it allows me to grow.
Yeah. So I don't like to fail, but I understand this concept, right? And so failing's important. If you don't fail, your dream probably isn't big enough, right? You probably didn't start with the biggest thing possible that you could have started with. If you can just waltz your way to your big life dream and never fall down, was your dream really as big as it could have been? I would say no. And this is the journey is just as important as the destination, if not more important. Growth mindset versus fixed mindset, right? How many of you are familiar with this concept? Yeah. Is it Carol?
Right.
Yeah. So this is Carol Dweck. What book did that? You're Mr.
Mindset
Is it Mindset?
Also, the Heidi Grant Halverson book, too.
Mm.
The Succeed book.
Yeah. So have a growth mindset, right? One that is focused on growing, not one that's just like, this is the way things are, and I'm just stationary. So, hey, if those are the lies, what's the truth? It's only 7:20, so we have time for the truth. It's amazing. Wouldn't it have been terrible if it was 8 o'clock and I was like, class is over? Kidding. So the truth, we overthink, we overplan, we overanalyze our careers, our businesses, our lives, our relationships, right? All that stuff. And what happens is that we think we're succeeding based on what we're doing, but we're really succeeding in spite of most of what we're doing, right? That 80% of crap that's generating 20% of the results, that's all the stuff that we're succeeding in spite of. Imagine if you focused on the stuff that was generating the results. The key to success isn't in all the things we do, but in the handful of things that we do well. That's the 20% or 5%, right? Some people it's 5%, 95%. right? And it's not like a personal thing. It's just could be the task and the results or the business they're in. Got to be appropriate in the moments of your life. If you can honestly say, this is where I'm meant to be right now, doing exactly what I'm doing, then all the amazing possibilities for your life become possible. How many of you feel like you can say that? I do. I love teaching, in case you didn't know. Did you raise your hand?
I didn't actually. I was distracted by something else.
No. James is not going to be here next week. He's going to be outside making faces through the window. So, who knows where this quote came from? Nope. That's very good. We've got a wolf and a Humpty Dumpty tonight. See if we can get a third one in there. Anybody else know? Put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket.
Wasn't that who's the big, oh no, I was thinking Warren Buffett, yeah.
Older. Andrew Carnegie. But, hey, Brian, how on earth are you ever going to pick a basket? You're telling me, you know what, if you want to just be wealthy and that's your goal and you've got this big life planned and you need $20 million a year and I tell you, go invest in real estate, and you're like, well, shouldn't I invest in the stock market? And I'm like, no, just all of it in real estate, right? You're like, well, how do I know that's the right basket? We ask the focusing question, right? What's the one thing, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to come back to that. Who knows who this quote is from? The secret of getting ahead is getting started. The secret to getting started is breaking your complex, overwhelming tasks into small, manageable tasks, and then starting on the first one. This is the dominoes, right? Anyone know this? I'd be shocked. Mark Twain. How do you know what the first one should be? The focusing question. There we go, right? How do we know which big basket to pick? We use the focusing question. How do we know where to start? We take that and we use the focusing question. What is the one thing that you can do today or in your life such that by doing it, all the other things become easier or unnecessary? Here's the focusing question. Thanks for ruining my next slide. Jerk. There it is. I just recited it, right? So this helps answer the big picture. We can ask this, hey, what's the one thing I can do in my life to find, hey, what's my one thing? I want to make sure that, all animals have a place that they can live and not have to be homeless or people or whatever it is. Helps answer your big one. Where am I going? What target should I aim for? That's this. And then the small one. Where do I start? What's the first thing I should do? What's that tiny little domino that guy touched with the pen? Right? I know you couldn't hear it, but they must have been like metal because he like touches it with a pen and you hear clink, 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 clink. And I just spit on Anna, which is awesome. Sorry, I didn't actually make it to her. Right? What do I have to do right now to be on the path to achieve that big picture? Where do we apply this in our life? We can apply it everywhere. Spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, business, financial, whatever you want, right? But extraordinary results, which is the whole point, come from the actions we make and the decisions we make. Focusing question is going to aim you at the best of both of these by forcing you not just to make a decision, to make the best decision. Not to make a better decision, to make the best, which implies there is one, right? And only one, hence the one thing. It leads you right to your first domino. So let's take a look at that question just so we understand it a little better. What's the one thing I can do? What is that saying? It's sparking focused action, right? You can consider every option and every possibility you want, but at the end, what do you get to choose? One thing. One thing only. Can do, not should do, not would do, not could do, not will do. Can. Right? What can you do? Part two, such that by doing it, right, this basically tells you, hey, there's going to be a criteria that you're going to have to meet. So pay attention, right? It's the bridge between just doing anything and doing something for a specific purpose. And what's that purpose? So that everything else will be easier or unnecessary, right? This is really the ultimate leverage test. If what you're doing isn't going to make everything else easier or unnecessary, then that's not it. You've got the wrong thing. Asking this is the ultimate success habit for your life. So if you can get yourself for 66 days to ask this question, and your big picture becomes clear and your small things become clear that you need to do to get to your big picture, and that becomes a habit for you, imagine how big your life could become. It could become incredible. Then, what do you have to do? You ask this question. Now the work is on yours, right? You've got to go find the answer. How are you going to find the answer? Well, we can pick a doable answer. How many of us like doable answers? I like to be able to do answers that are the hard questions. But this is only the easiest answer that you can seek, right? It's not hard, and you probably already know how to get there. Lots of people pick this, right? This is kind of the settling for less answer, right? Likely know how to do it, and you're not going to have to change much to get there. What's the stretch answer? How many of you guys work at a place where they have stretch goals? Yeah. Stretch goals. So at Microsoft, we had all sorts of goals, but there were like, here's the stuff you have to get done or we'd fire you. And then there's like your real goals of like what you're going to grow with. And then there were the stretch goals, which were like, these are what we want you to like, we want to see if you can stretch past your other goals that you're growing and grow further and faster, right? So a stretch goal might be for, you know, a developer who's working on a project to go and expand his reach and go work with a different team and have an impact on that team, right? So that's a stretch goal. Stretch goals are good. So, but what do we know about a stretch goal? We can probably still see what that takes, right? That developer can go, yep, I can totally understand how I could go make an impact on another team. That's feasible. You're probably going to have to go do a little research, study maybe what others have done, and then come up with the answer. You might have to come outside your current abilities. Exit your comfort zone to get it done, which is the whole point of the stretch goal. However, we aren't looking for any of those. We're trying to create the biggest life we can live. We're going to look for the possibility answer. What is possible, right? So instead of that developer saying, hey, I can go make an impact on another team at Microsoft, maybe he says, I'm going to go make an impact on the world, right, through X, Y, and Z, right? That would be a possibility answer because it's definitely possible. Does he know how to do it? Probably not. Hardest to come by, but by trying to find it, you're going to expand your life, right? Again, we're focused on pushing outside the comfort zone. And it's probably, you're going to have to go research, you're going to have to go study, you're going to have to really dig in and find what only the greatest achievers do, which is what, James?
I have no idea.
Oh, man. Benchmark and trend. You're supposed to know that. You have to read it a third time. So, benchmarking and trending. What is this? This is how we're going to find that possibility answer. We're going to go out, we're going to say, hey, what are other people that are trying to do this? What have they done? How far have they gotten? And where are they likely to go? Right? And when we've got that, we basically establish that benchmark, and then we can kind of see, here's the trend, and here are possibilities around that trend. Right? You're going to a place where no one has gone. That sounds scary, but it's amazing, right? You want to take your life to somewhere that is big enough that expands you. So the benchmark, right, this is what you can see now, right? This is that developer saying, yeah, I can totally see I had an impact on another team, but can he really understand and see the path from I'm a developer working on this little project and now I'm going to change the world? The path in between there is not clear, right? So he's going to have to go figure out how have other people done this. And then trend. Look for the next thing you can do in the same direction that these people are already heading, or if you need to, an entirely new direction. If you find out that all the people that are trying to do this are kind of stalled and stuck, go a different way. Then you get an original answer. You get to go and make your life bigger with that. And you're not going to just come here, right? You're going to be out here. And you're going to expand that comfort zone to there. What happens next? Next time you ask this, you're going to push further, right? Your knowledge improves. your comfort zone improves and expands. Extraordinary results. That's what we're after. That's why we're here. That's why we're using the one thing. Purpose, priority, and productivity are interrelated to get extraordinary results. Right? Purpose is your big one thing. Right? When you come and I'm like, every once in a while, the question of the night is why? What is your why for real estate investing? Why do you do it? Right? So purpose is that one big thing for whatever your life holds. Priority, that's that small thing. Right? What's the priority for me to get to that big thing that I should start with? Where's productivity? That's what happens as the results. Right? You take your big thing, you focus on the small thing that leads to your big thing, and productivity results from that. This is why if you don't have a why for why you're investing in real estate, it's really hard to get you there, right? You can go do the work, but if you don't understand why, you're not going to put in the disproportionate amount of time to make sure you're successful. So allow this to be that driving force. Personal productivity, we're going to kind of talk about how this applies to business, right? If you have a person that isn't productive, are they good for your business? Probably not, right? I wouldn't really want them. So people that are being productive by having this purpose, using the priority from the one thing question, who are being productive, what do? They provide profit for businesses, right? They're being successful at the business, and that leads to profit. Live with purpose. Ask people what they want in life, and what do you hear the most? What do you want in life? To be happy. There it is. How many of you are happy? Awesome. People are happy in this room. I like it. So most of what we do throughout our life is ultimately meant to do what? Make us happy. Does it do it? No, because it doesn't work the way we think it does, right? We could spend 20% of our time and get 80% of those results. If we spent more time focused on that 20%, we might be happier. Acquiring money, buying stuff, does this make us happy? Yeah. How long? Short. Yeah. Why?
Then you satisfy that.
Yes. You get accustomed to it. You get used to it. You like buy the new car and you're like, this is awesome. Check out my new car, James. It's a Honda Accord from 1997. Right? But at some point, James is like, yeah, cool, whatever. Want to ride in my car? And I'm like, yeah, because my car sucks. I'm not happy with it anymore. Right? We only get a quick spike. If we don't have that big picture view, we end up being serial about what we are doing in success. And what does that look like? It's basically that pattern we just described. We succeed. We're like, yeah, I got a promotion. And then we get accustomed to being promoted, right? We're at that new level and we've been there for 6 months and now we're used to it. So what happens? That happiness that came with it goes away, starts to dwindle. And then what happens? We get bored and we go find something new. We have ADD. So instead of being focused, working on our goals towards this big one thing, we're like, yeah, I got my small thing, bored, gonna go find another small thing. And the problem with this is, and I'm super guilty of this a lot, is that we don't even stop to enjoy what we've accomplished a lot of the time. We're just like, yeah, I got promoted, where's my next promotion, right? Like, you didn't even enjoy it. It lasted for that long because you already knew you were gonna get it, and you already were thinking about the next one. When does that stop? When you're the CEO? When you make $1 million a year, 10 million a year? I don't know. Happiness happens on the way to fulfillment. The journey to get that promotion is what should be making you happy. When your daily actions fulfill a bigger purpose, then you're going to end up with more powerful and enduring happiness. If you enjoy what you do day to day. James, do you enjoy your daily day-to-day work? Wow. Do you think I enjoy mine?
Yeah.
Do you think James is a happy person? No one said anything. Do you think I'm a happy person? No one said anything. I love my work, right? And it's why it's why I spend a lot of time doing it. I spend a disproportionate amount of time, but I still come back to family to make sure that they're there when I'm done working. So ask yourself, what's the one thing I can do in my life that would mean the most to me and the world, such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary? And start there. That's how you can live with purpose. And this is key. Some of you might have just gone in your head, holy crap, I don't have an answer for that, not anywhere close. And if you don't, that's okay. I once had a developer who worked for me who didn't know if he wanted to be an architect, which is like individual contributor and you kind of architect the system, or if he wanted to be on the manager track. They're two very different tracks. And he was just like, I don't know. And so we kind of went around on this, and finally I was like, look, dude, pick one. What's the one you think you want to be today? He was like, a manager. And I was like, great. You're now in charge of this project as the manager. Go do it, right? And it forced him to go do it. And he decided that that wasn't for him pretty quickly, right? It's like, I changed my mind. I'd rather be an architect. This people management stuff, it sucks, right? If you don't know the answer to this, pick a direction and start down the path. Don't waste your time. Every day you don't pick a direction, you're just wasting time. Live by priority, right? If you notice, we're going purpose, priority. So, if you have purpose, but you have no priorities, what are you doing? Twiddling your thumbs, right? It's pointless. So, how do we fix that? We use goal setting to the now, right? Can you guys read that or no? All right. So, someday goal, right? This is the thing we just answered. What's the one thing I can do for myself or for the world that I want to do? And then, based on that, right, we're going to bring it all the way back. Remember that developer who couldn't figure out how to change the world? This is it. He says, how can I change the world? That's my someday goal. 5-year goal. Based on me wanting to change the world, what's the one thing I can do in the next 5 years? He writes that down, and what do? We step back further, closer in time. 1 year. Based on the 5-year goal, what's the one thing I can do this year? Based on that, what's the one thing I can do this month? What's the one thing I can do this week? What's the one thing I can do today? And what's the one thing I can do right now? If you connect those dots, people who connect the process, not just, here's my goal, here's what I'm going to do today. People who visualize that perform better. They did a study with people who were in college, and they said, this side of the room, I want you to visualize getting a good grade on the test. This side, I want you to visualize getting a good grade, but I want you to think about every single thing you're going to do to get the good grade. The study sessions, the homework, I want you to visualize it all. This side of the room will far outperform this side of the room every time. Visualize that entire process. You've got to connect today to that tomorrow that you want in your life. Write down your goals and keep them close. If you don't do that, you should.
And as an aside, for real estate investors, there's a goal setting class that we did that went through this process in detail.
Yes.
Is that one of those recorded ones?
Yeah, it is.
Live for productivity. Purpose, priority, productivity, right? Purpose is the big thing. Priority is our small thing. Productivity, that's the result. How do we get to be productive? We block the heck out of our time, right? This is the method that they use. This is what most of our days look like. Oh, I'm going to do that big important thing, and you spend this much time working on it, and all the rest of the time filling out your to-do list and crossing things like vacuum off, right? Don't do that. You've got to do what matters most. Here's how you time block. Pull out your calendar. You time block your time off first. Wait, Brian, why are you time blocking time off? Shouldn't we time block our one thing? No, you time block time off because without being rested, without being healthy, you're never going to be able to focus on your one thing. Time block your time off. Then, time block your one thing. How much time should we block for this? 8 hours. That's a great answer. How much time? What do you guys think? You're going to spend, this is the most important thing in your life. How much time are you going to spend on it a day?
20 hours.
What?
3 hours.
3 hours.
20% of your working day.
20% of your working day. Anybody else? How long is your working day? 24 hours.
Disproportionate amount of time.
Yes, I would say a disproportionate amount of your working day, right? We don't want to just spend 20%. I get why you're saying that for the 80% of the results, but if you can spend 80% of your work day, you would get, 80 times 4, 320%. My math seems really slow tonight. So, block all the time you need for your one thing. When are we blocking it? Early in the day. Why? We're rested, we're ready to go. Start with 4 hours. Does that seem crazy long? Yeah. Remember, disproportionate amount of time. You want to have an amazing life? This is how you get there.
I think I have a hard time focusing for 4 hours straight.
That's fine.
I'm just gonna say, smaller amount of time, but make sure that you're focused and not distracted.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Hey, you've focused for an hour and take a 5-minute recharge and then focus. But it's not 5 minutes of, I'm going to go check my phone now, I'm reading the newspaper, I'm at the water cooler, and suddenly my 4 hours is over. People are going to adjust to this quickly. You might think, I know if I would have shut my door at Microsoft for 4 hours, people would have been like, I wouldn't have gotten 10 minutes, right? So there's an example in the book where the person that worked at the company, she just took her laptop, went to an empty office, shut the door, no one knew she was there, and pretty soon people started to adapt. It only took about a week. People started knowing, yeah, she's working on that one thing. We just don't have contact with her for these 4 hours, right? And you might think, oh, that's not feasible in my job. But then you could go read Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week. Could you really work for 4 hours and make the same amount of money? Maybe, right? That's doable. This is totally doable, right? How many of you feel like you work until your work is done versus work on a clock? Yeah. So productive people are working on event time. And if you didn't raise your hand, that's okay. Your job may dictate you're a nurse from 9 till 9, and you're on shift, and then you're done. And that's probably too long for anyone to be on shift as a nurse, but that happens. Time block your planning time. In order to block this, we got to set a little time aside, about an hour a week, to go block this stuff out and plan our week, right? Maybe we're going to have to re-ask our question. What's the one thing I can do right now or today, right? And make sure we're still in line. Review your annual and monthly goals, right? Keep them close, write them down. Here's what we want our day to look like. We want to spend a disproportionate amount of time on our one thing and spend the rest of it on everything else. No?
Well, for me personally, I just have to go to work, and so.
Right, but what are you doing at work? I bet you there's one thing that's more important at work for you to do than everything else. And I'm betting that instead of working on that for 4 hours a day, you're answering emails or looking at your phone or playing a game on your phone, all the stuff that people do, right? That's what this is about, right? And this is, event time. When you're trying to start a new business and you already have a job, this is where people will outperform other people. They will go to the extreme at home, working on their e-commerce business at night until they are done. They're up until 2 in the morning, and then they're getting up at 6, and they're going to work. And it's hard, but it's worth it because they understand where they're going, and that's what drives them, which is why if you don't have a why for why you're real estate investing, it's really hard to be successful long term. Does that make sense? Do you feel it better? Okay. Otherwise, I'm going to come back and give you a hug. So, spend disproportionate amount of time on that, and day after day, cross it off the list. So Jerry Seinfeld, I'm sure everyone knows him. I'm not sure if it was him or a different comedian in the book because it was referencing him and a different comedian that I don't think they named. But the advice that he gave was write jokes every day. You want to be a comedian? Write jokes every day. Just like our impressionist painter, he painted a painting every day. You want to be a good songwriter? Write a song every day, right? So if you get a calendar out and you're like, hey, I did my one thing today, and you put a big red X on that calendar and do it for a week, you've now got a streak. Your only goal at that point is to not break the streak. Did you spend time focusing on your one thing today? I sure did, right? Imagine if you could do that for a week or a month or a year, right? Keeping that streak going for a year, you're knocking some serious dominoes down. You're moving up that geometric progression. Protect your time block. What is coming at us? All sorts of distraction. How do we avoid it? Adopt your mindset that that time block that you set is a meeting with you and it's more important, right? It cannot be moved. You've blocked it on your calendar. It is out of office, right? I know this sounds crazy. And then people are like, hey, we need to have a meeting. And Anna's like, sorry, I already have an appointment. However, would this afternoon at 2 p.m. work for you, right? Supply alternatives to people who are asking for your time. Don't just say, nope, working on my one thing, sorry. Give them an alternative. Hey, can we do that here or here? Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, what if it's my boss, right? What if my boss says, hey, I need you in this meeting, or can you do this by the end of today, and it's going to take you all day. Hey, if I have that done by X day, would that work for you? A lot of the times our bosses are just trying to hand off a task that they don't have time for or don't want to do, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be done now. In the case that it is, right, if you erase your time block, you must replace your time block. You can't just scratch it off. You want to keep that streak of X's going. So if that happens, go in, reschedule your time block for that day, and move forward. Go find a space for you that removes all the distraction, all the disruption, right? Take what you need. Take a snack. Take some water. Don't get up and go to the break room. That shit is just distraction, right? Go to the break room. Hey, who brought donuts? Awesome. You want to have a donut? Yeah, let's go get coffee. And an hour later, you've got nothing done, right? Turn off your phone. Turn off your email. Turn off your browser. How many times do you check email a day? The answer is probably 1,000, right? Especially if you worked like I worked in Microsoft, which was super email-centric culture, right? Everyone checked their email all the time. It was really annoying and a bad habit. Turn all this stuff off. Whatever it is can wait. Your biggest obstacle actually might be your own brain. I think you said it earlier, right? You're thinking, holy shit, how am I going to get all the rest of my stuff done? I'm spending 4 hours a day doing this. I don't have any time. I'm going to go crazy, right? When this happens, just write this stuff down on a Post-it. That's that list that is just a to-do list. It's just the stuff. Get it out of your brain. And then internalize that in order for that first domino to fall, which is heading towards your big, great life with extraordinary results, you have to spend time on your one thing. If you don't, you're not going to get there. Put up a sign. If you have the book, he's fortunate enough to give you a sign. In case I can't say no, this sign will have to do it for me. Basically, get out. And if you don't like that one, there's the one on the other side. Do not disturb me. I'm working on my one thing. Right? So find whatever works for you and tell other people and get their support. One of the things that keeps people, obviously you guys know that writing goals is important. It's something like if you write goals down, you're like 39% more likely to be successful. But if you write your goals down and you tell someone else, you're like 76% more likely to be successful. So this is telling other people, get their support. Hey, 4 hours in the morning from 7 to 11, don't come knock on my door. Don't call me. I'm not answering. I'm not responding to texts. I'm done. I'm working on the most important thing in my life. And I already covered that one. Write it down. If you got all that stuff spinning in your head, write it down, get it out of your head, push it to the side, keep going on your one thing. The 3 commitments. So commit to this, and these are the 3 things you want to commit to on the journey of the one thing. Follow the path of mastery. James, what's your thought on mastery? More so I can just take a drink than anything else.
I think mastery is the key. Really focusing on going deep on something rather than becoming a dabbler and going shallow on a large number of things.
What does mastery mean to you?
It means spending a lot of time on one particular topic to really understand the nuances of that topic.
But are you ever going to master it?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a continuous improvement process.
Yeah. So I think that's key. If you think Michael Jordan ever thought he was done getting better at basketball, you're wrong, right? There's always something to improve on, and he understood that. He understood it's the journey of trying to master something that is what mastery is about. Experts aren't gifted. We've already talked about this. They weren't born that way. What they do, they put in the time. Your expertise in an area tracks with your hours spent, right? I have been around real estate for all my life. My dad was a realtor for 40 years in Denver. He owned rentals. I didn't buy my first rental in 2012. How am I up here talking about stuff on every other week basis? Every week basis, twice a week basis this month, right? It's because I put an extraordinary amount of hours into it, right? That was my focus. That was all I did. I lived, I breathed, I ate it. So the more hours you're going to invest, the better. 10,000 hour rule. I can't remember the book it's from. Yeah, what's the book? Yeah. So if you haven't read Outliers, Outliers is a great read. It talks in there about a bunch of research that was done, and 10,000 hours is kind of the benchmark for becoming an expert. So they looked at, like, how did the greatest violin players ever become great? They had their 10,000 hours in before they were 20. 10,000 hours, how many years of a typical work week is that? It's like 5 years of a typical work week, right? 8 hours a day for 5 years, Monday through Friday. So 365 days per year, that's about 3 hours a day. But we're in a work week, it has about 250 work days. That's about 4 hours a day. Oh, is that coincidence? Probably not, right? That's what we're suggesting you time block, 4 hours a day. You really need to see mastery as the path, right? Which is, I think, what you heard James say, right? It's not a destination. You are never going to be the master of karate, right? What does a black belt have over a white belt? He's practiced and done the same moves the white belt is doing, but a whole lot more, right? He's fluid with them. He understands them. It's just habit. That's going to make it feel accessible and attainable. If you think, I want to be the best at this, or my one thing is this, and the only thing you can see is how far away it is and how long that's going to take, and like you'll never get there, don't think of it like that. Think of it as, hey, today is the first step. Let's start. We want you to move from entrepreneurial to purposeful. Here's entrepreneurial. Your natural ceiling of achievement, if you can't read this, that's what this black line is, right? You start out, you go, you're all excited, and then you hit that ceiling, and what happens? You're disappointed. Come back down. You kind of resign, things are going really bad, and then, you figure out something new. And you get excited again, and then you bonk your head, right? What would we rather see? We would rather see, geez, I guess it's a long way down here. We'd rather see that, right? We'd rather see you break through that ceiling by using focus, models, systems, and then the breakthrough, right? This is the benchmark and trend. Find the biggest possible life you can have with the answer that maybe hasn't been thought of. Don't accept the limitations as the final word on your success. Don't let anyone give you, these are the 3 options, pick one, right? You can do better than that. Different results require different thinking. Live the accountability cycle. This is one of my favorite slides. So this is the, am I going to be accountable or am I going to be a victim, right? Stuff is going to happen to us every day. How do we respond? Life happens. Hey, instead of asking no questions, we should be asking, hey, what's happening? And then acknowledge it. Hey, this is the way it is. And if that's to be, right, it's up to me. Right? This is the new reality. It's up to me to do something about it. It's not up to someone else. I'm not going to blame it. Right? What can I do? And then go do that. Right? The bad side of this is don't ask any questions. Ignore it. It's not how I see it. It's not really the reality. And blame everyone else. Right? I'm sure you all know this person. Right? It's not my job. I'm out. Right? And if it was meant to be, it'll happen in time. No. Be accountable. Hold yourself accountable. Be the author of your own life. Don't be the victim. I'm not sure why it says be the author of your life or the victim. It's just you can choose. Look at that. Find an accountability partner. I just talked about this. Having someone who knows your goals and who's holding you accountable will make you much more successful. It's hard if I say, hey, James, I'm not going to do X from now until a year from now. If I tell him that, and then every week he's like, how's that going? And I know he's going to ask. He probably asks like every morning, right? If I know he's going to ask, like, oh, it's like, oh my God, I have to tell him I didn't do it, right? I'm going to make sure I get it done. And I'd want him to tell me the whole truth. Hey, you know, this isn't going well. You're not doing what you said you were going to do. You're not going to get to your big life that you want. Seek teachers, seek coaches to help with all three of these commitments. All right, we're almost done. The 4 thieves of productivity, right? So we've got purpose, our big one thing, priority, our small one thing, leads to productivity. We got to be careful. What steals productivity from us? Distractions. I don't know what the first one is. Inability to say no, right? If you can't say no, you're just saying yes to everything. When you say yes to one thing, you need to defend it with no's, right? Understand what you're saying no to when you say yes. Hey, do you want to be involved in this project? Yeah, that sounds fun. But wait, you just distracted from your one thing, right? You have to understand when you say yes, you're saying no to other things. If you're saying yes to something that's not your one thing and you don't have the time, you're not going to get there. Be focused, say no. Fear of chaos, right? So if we go to the extreme and spend a disproportionate amount of time on one thing, what's going to happen? Dishes aren't going to get done. The floor's not getting vacuumed. My dog's not getting brushed, right? All that stuff might not be happening. But some of that's the point, right? You got to still take care of your family and your pets and stuff like that. But some of that stuff at work, like bogus emails and TPS reports and all that stuff, right? You don't need to do them. The world will not end without them. You don't need to go to meetings about when they should call the next meeting, right? Those are stupid. Get used to this chaos and then get over it and move on. Some things obviously can't be ignored. Ask for help. Get them done. Whatever it takes, just don't go back and be the victim. Poor health habits. This is a big one, right? If you're going to do your one thing, you're going to need some big energy. So you have to feed your system. You can't sacrifice your health. Sleep enough, right? Get a good night's sleep. Get up in the morning. You can get up as early as you'd like. Meditate or be spiritual or whatever it is you want to do. Eat some breakfast or work out and then eat breakfast. I can't eat breakfast and work out. That doesn't work for me, right? Go hug your significant other and your kids or your dog or whatever it is. Talk with them, laugh, play, and then go plan your day and freaking get to work, right? Go do your one thing. Get yourself energized in the morning and have that pull you through the rest of your day with very little effort, right? If you've never tried that, totally do it. Like, go tomorrow and be like, hey, the one thing I learned tonight, I'm going to go get a good night's sleep, and then I'm going to get up, and I'm going to work out, and I'm going to eat a breakfast, and I'm going to go hug some people, I'm going to laugh a little, and then I'm going to go figure out what my one thing is, right? You'll have an amazing day. Get rid of your environment if it doesn't support your goals, right? Surround yourself with the right people. What's the thing about 5 people? You are basically the average of the 5 people that you are closest to, right? You're not going to succeed or fail alone. This is the same as it is in real estate, right? If you don't have people surrounding you that think you can do real estate, if your significant other or spouse or whatever is like, hey, I can't, you're just never going to be successful in that, right? I'm not saying you should get a new spouse, but it makes it really difficult, right? You need to do some convincing and get them on board.
I'll say you should.
Not me. I'm not the one putting my spouse's clothes on. Remove all these time thieves, right? It's crazy. Like, I don't know why you're laughing. But remove your phone, remove your email, close down everything. Don't go to the break room. Don't turn the TV on. Don't turn the radio on. A lot of people think, oh, hey, I can work with music on. I will say if you're going to do that, at least put something with no words on, right? You're spending cycles in your brain thinking about the song, singing the song, whistling, whatever it is. The journey. So every journey, what? Starts with a single step, and that step is the one thing. So right now, I want everybody to close their eyes for real, and imagine your life as big as you possibly can. Don't limit yourself. Imagine it. If it's not amazing, keep imagining. The biggest life that you think you can live. So whatever it is you can see, you can open your eyes if you want. If you're asleep now, that's okay. Whatever it is you can see, you have the capacity to go move toward and do. Don't limit yourself. When you go for what you think you just saw or what you want, that's going to lead you to the biggest life that you can live. So now think about your current income. We'll take it annually. You don't have to say it out loud. Think about your current income and then pick one of these numbers. Let's just all pick 2 to start. Pick 2. Multiply your current income by 2. Will your current actions get you to that income in the next 5 years? How many people say yes? Perfect. Multiply that number by 2. Do they still get you there? Fine. Multiply it by 20. Do your current actions get you there in 5 years? If you're saying yes, we need to talk after class. Right? And it doesn't matter. This is just an income example. So for you, it might not be income. Right? But think about that. Right? Keep doubling it until you reach a point where you're like, hey, my current actions aren't going to get me there. How do I think differently? I think differently by going, oh man, I have no idea how to make $50K a month in passive income. I would need to change the way I'm buying real estate. I might need to go set up a PPM or go partner with somebody or go start my own real estate company. I don't know, but this is a very different thing than this. Live your life to minimize the regrets you have at the end of your life. There's a book that they went out and basically the guy talked to a bunch of people. He was a caretaker. He cared for people at the end of their lives. And these were the 5 regrets that people consistently say. So if you want to plan your life to not have regrets at the end, this is what you should be focused on. I wish I'd let myself be happier. I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Maybe some of that work is just that BS 80% of the work we're doing. Can you cut it out? And I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected me to live. You, everybody in here, you are the first domino for your life. You have that opportunity, and success is going to start with you. Put yourself together, focus, and the world will fall into place around you. Bring purpose to your life. That's the big one thing. Know your priorities. That's the small one thing. Be productive on that small one thing that matters the most every single day, and you'll start knocking those dominoes down, and your life will make sense and be extraordinary. In closing, here's how you're going to put it to work today. Examples in different areas, depending on what you want to focus on. Personal, what's the one thing I can do in 90 days to get in the physical shape I want? Family, what's the one thing we can do every week to spend more quality time together? Job, what's the one thing I can do to complete my current project ahead of schedule and help my boss buy another Lamborghini? Right? Work team, what's the one thing I can do in the next 6 months to find and develop incredible talent? Community, what's the one thing we can do to help the homebound? You can apply this anywhere. Remember, 66 days. Focus, develop a habit. Right? So, here's your first one thing question for you. You can all answer this tonight. What's the one thing I can do right now to start using the one thing in my life such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Sleep. And that is it. Oh, yeah. What's the one thing for real estate?
Yep.
For who?
That's the hard part, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the getting your first deal done, right? That class is coming up. So those are like a list of all of the small priorities that lead you to be able to get your first deal done, right? For me, it's, you know, in genericizing the real estate, I would say, you know, go back to the goal setting class that you taught and say, you know, what is your goal? Like, go ask that question, right? What is the one thing in whatever area you're going to focus on, whether it's work or personal or whatever, right? But ask that in real estate and understand what your why is and then go, right? Once you know your purpose, it's easy to get to the priority. You just got to take a little bit of time. Do you have a better answer?
I don't know.
It's personalized. That's the
I
problem.
think for off-market deals, it's definitely putting on marketing. I know that for a fact. I've thought about that one in detail before.
Right, but then
Nothing
there's
happens until
right.
you have marketing out.
Yeah, but that's not your big purpose. That's the like small thing, but even that gets broken down.
I agreed, but that's sort of like the thing to start doing the detail of. But for like buying on-market deals, I think probably the first thing is talking to a lender. Then the next thing is probably analyzing deals, and the next thing is making offers.
Yeah, see, I would come back to, those are all fine things, but I think those are all the small things, right?
Right, that's what I'm talking about. The one thing you do small-wise.
Okay, then yes. But to me, before you can do that, right, you've got to have your purpose. So if your purpose is, hey, I want $5K a month in passive income, but why do you want that, right? I think you have to have that purpose.
So once you determine your why, though, no matter if you want 5K or 50K or whatever it is, I think some of the steps are the same.
Maybe, but you should plan it backwards, right? You should go out and figure out, here's my goal. You should look at what other people are doing and walk back from, here's my future goal, 5 years, 1 year, 1 month, 1 week, 1 day, now. Yeah. Any questions? Sweet. Everybody go buy the book or just answer the question. No. Nope. So I would never, so many people probably know this, but James or I would never stand up here, and sell anything other than popcorn for Cub Scouts. Which everyone should buy. I don't know where the sheet is. It's back there. And if you bought, thank you so much. My two sons appreciate it. So they go door to door and they work really hard, and they're each trying to sell $1,500 worth of popcorn this year. But we would never stand up here and sell anything. I mean, James barely tells people he's a realtor. I have to tell him for him. So, but it's really, we teach stuff, and I don't get, I mean, other than James buying me dinner, I don't get compensation, right? I teach because I want to help other people, right? And it's part of my one thing, right? So for me, it's, if you guys can take something away and go make your lives better and use that information, that makes me feel great, right? And if you come back and tell me, I'll feel even better, right? So if I can help you do a deal, if I can help you, you know, focus and figure out your why, whatever that is, right? I think we're both here to help and help you guys figure out how to invest in real estate and how to make your lives better from it. So, yeah. You have anything you want to add?
That's it.
Perfect.
Thank you. I really do
Thanks.
appreciate teaching the class.
Yeah.